today because I kind of want to talk about the Manchester City game. I go further in depth about it with David Mooney, who is the host, award-winning host, may I say, of the brilliant Blue Moon podcast. Fantastic podcast. Everything he does on it is just production value, a lot of it, amazing. And a really good guy to, get an in-depth insight on Man City and to hear what his thoughts are on the club and where they are right now ahead of Aston Villa playing them this Sunday. I'll touch on what he said in a minute. But the first thing I kind of want to talk about is a player that I think might play a key role. And his name is Jack Grealish. Birmingham's own, Solihull's own. I'm from Solihull, so, we're not, it's outside of Birmingham, isn't it? So, yeah, Solihull's own, Jack Grealish. I think it's fair to say that his first year at Manchester City was not brilliant. I think he was sort of okay, but he didn't stand out in the way he did for Aston Villa. And to be quite frank, I still don't think he sticks out in the way that he did for Aston Villa. And I personally think that the right football club for him to go to would have been somewhere where he could have been a talisman. And I probably in my head think he may have been suited to somewhere like Real Madrid or a Manchester United, where he could have been the leading force in the team, rather than at City, where he kind of makes up the numbers. That said, I think that this season he has shown signs that he's getting used to the City style and he's adapted to it. And do I think he's a better player than he was at Villa? No. I think he was one of the best players I've ever seen in my life at Villa. I think he was one of the most exciting players in world football to watch. And I think it's a shame that we don't get to see what made him so special as much anymore. I would never boo Grealish ever. I still kind of love the man, really, for everything he did for Aston Villa. And I kind of only really want to see him do well. But I just kind of think when I watch him at City, I think he is now adapting to their style, but it's not as fun to watch him anymore. It's just how I would say it. But that being said, he's won the Premier League and he'll go and win a lot more trophies. But the thing is, he's not been a regular starter for City until recently. The last 4 games for City, I'm just going to get up his stats now, he's played the full 90 minutes. And that started with the Tottenham game, where Tottenham went 2-0 ahead at City's ground. And then City pulled it back to go 4-2. Since then, he played against Wolves, which they won 3-0. He played in the Arsenal FA Cup game, a 1-0 win. And then he played away at Tottenham, a 1-0 loss. So, will Pep Guardiola shake up the team from the one that lost against Tottenham? Most likely. And it's interesting that Jack Grealish hasn't yet really played that much against Villa in the 3 fixtures that were available. And the one he really missed at the end of last season, the 3-2, was a game where he was really in form. And so it was quite surprising that he didn't feature in that game. But then you start to wonder, well, did Guardiola kind of keep him out because, essentially does he fear that it could, rile up the Villa fans and maybe even the Villa players? Maybe they'll know a thing or two about Grealish and maybe be able to stop him in ways that most of the teams can't. But this Sunday, it'll be interesting to see whether Grealish does start for them. The only time I can think of him really playing against Villa was when the Villa fans sang Villa Till I Die, when he came on kind of in the last 10 minutes of that 2-1 win they had at Villa Park last season. So, yes, it'll be interesting to see if he does play. I think he's probably one of his more informed players. Now, I said a touch on what David Mooney said to me, and that was that Manchester City right now apparently are quite similar to the season they had when they came second to Liverpool in the 2019-2020 season. Liverpool won the league by an absolute country mile that year, and City were quite a way off it. And the way it was suggested is that City, they didn't even have to be at 100% to win games in the seasons where they win the league. But in that season, if they were slightly off it, teams could get at them. And at the moment, it kind of feels a bit like City are in that kind of a spell, and that Arsenal look like a more settled team than they do. Um, and, you know, I've been kind of just sitting around expecting that City will at some point go on a 50 million game winning streak and nobody will stop them because they have the coach, the players, and the financial superpower that no one else can match apart from, I don't know, PSG and Newcastle. That it's just, you can't stop them. They're the juggernaut. But this season, it doesn't look like that's happening. And that was something that David Mooney said on the podcast, that he doesn't feel that's going to happen this year. And one of the reasons is Erling Haaland. Now, Erling Haaland, he's the school bully in every high school movie, isn't he? He's Biff in Back to the Future. McFly, you want your ball? Go get your ball. I reckon he's just standing there the whole time shouting, McFly, Mings, cancer. And then just, bullying them, pulling wedgies, doing all that stuff. But whilst he scored 25 goals this season, and he is indeed a footballing Terminator sent from the future to destroy, Manchester City are in a process of adapting to him. So it feels like part of the reason they are inconsistent, according to, informed City fans, is that they're kind of getting used to playing with Erling Haaland. Now, I'm fairly certain that at some point that will come together. But you can see how it would take a while for a player of such, presence and an out-and-out number 9 to change a team's layout. And, City are not a team that really traditionally played with a striker under Pep Guardiola. So finally they've replaced Niall Quinn from back in the 90s and found the Norwegian Niall Quinn, Erling Haaland. So, of course, there's going to be some adaptation issues with that. I expect it will come good for them. But does it mean Aston Villa have a chance? So you're saying there's a chance? Well, we're probably not going to have a better chance than we do to get something at the Etihad for once in our lives. I predict it'll be 3-1 to City, right? I think City will just win because I will never be optimistic playing City. Even when they were rubbish, they somehow beat us. So, but, under Unai Emery, Aston Villa away from home have been incredibly impressive. Beat Brighton 2-1 away, in which we had to fight back from 1-0 down against a very good side. Tottenham 2-0 away, fantastic performance, in which I particularly thought Boubacar Kamara and Douglas Luiz were excellent as that midfield pairing. John McGinn had a key role to play in that game, and I hope we see John McGinn against Man City. Depends on his fitness, of course. He's not played for a few weeks. But he'd have a crucial role, you would think, against City if we're to disrupt their style of play. And also we won 1-0 away at Southampton, the Nathan Jones club. By the way, Nathan Jones. I'm obsessed. Once I finish recording this, I'm going to go straight downstairs and spend the entire night just watching Nathan Jones press conferences. What's he going on about? I'm from a Welsh mining town. I could have stayed home and married a nice Welsh girl, but I didn't want that. No offence to Welsh women. That's what he said. Best XG in Europe. It's fantastic. I want him to stay. I want Southampton to stay up in the Premier League so I can just watch him just every week. It's fantastic. Performance art. But aside from that, that was another game where Aston Villa were in control, I would say. So away from home, we've been incredibly impressive under Unai Emery, whilst displaying some weaknesses at home where we've at times looked vulnerable trying to take the initiative to the opponent. Now, against Manchester City, I suspect that a lot will come down to how much Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins can run the channels. I think it comes down to how well Boubacar Kamara and Douglas Luiz as a pairing can cope with City in the middle. Erling Haaland is going to be hard to stop, of course he is. He's got 25 goals already this season, which is incredible. Already beaten the Golden Boot from last year in the Premier League. But can Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa do the job on him? Well, we can keep him quiet, and that's the main thing. So yeah, I think the presence of John McGinn might be quite crucial if we can get him back. Who starts at left back, Moreno or Digne, or does Luca Dean start at left back and Alex Moreno ahead of him, playing that two left back style that Unai Emery liked to play at Villarreal? Now, of course, Professor Unai, he'll have a master plan. So I'm just going to go look here and look at what his head-to-head is against Pep Guardiola. They've played each other 12 times, 4 draws, 4, and 0 wins, 8 losses. That fills me with confidence. Emery has a good record against most managers if you look at who he's played against over the years. But Pep Guardiola is definitely the one he does not have a good record against. I kind of feel a bit like Vince McMahon in WWE when Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hits, when it does that sort of thing. That kind of feeling right now at the thought of Man City turning up, or Villa turning up to play Man City. Yeah, that's going to be awkward. But look, all records are there to be broken, and he has drawn 4 times. Most people have terrible records against Pep Guardiola because I think he is the most talented coach in the world. You could argue for Jurgen Klopp, I would say, or Carlo Ancelotti, of course, well, what he's done. But right now, in the era now, I would say Klopp and Guardiola are the best 2 in the world. And Guardiola's achievements at Barcelona were some of the greatest I've ever seen in football. But do Villa have a chance this weekend? City certainly are more vulnerable than they traditionally are. And so I think there is no better time now than for Unai Emery to potentially end this hoodoo he has. But I think City will ring the changes from the loss away at Tottenham. And if we look at their recent home form, how have they done? Well, they beat Arsenal 1-0 at home in the FA Cup. They beat Wolves 3-0, who were doing well under Julian Lopetegui. They beat Tottenham 4-2. Beat Chelsea 4-0. But they did draw 1-1 with Everton on the last day of December. So, look, Brentford went to Man City and got a result, 3-2, just before the World Cup. Everton went there and got a draw. City are in great form at home at the moment, but they're also inconsistent. And I imagine there will be a bounce back from what happened against Tottenham, but there's no reason why Aston Villa cannot go there with some level of confidence, given the way we played away from home, cannot go there with some kind of tactical idea that Unai Emery will instill, for sure. And if we stick to a positive game plan, and if we do go at City, don't just sit back and defend and give them a chance to play into their rhythm. Get at them and get quick balls forwards into Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey. A lot's going to rely on their consistency. I think Villa can cause some issues. Now, who's the informed player for Aston Villa at the moment? Boubacar Kamari would say has been, but the Leicester game was his one bad game he's had for Villa. So Villa themselves are also wanting to bounce back. I thought Emi Buendia was fantastic against Leicester. Can he do the same thing against City? Get in between the pockets and just, occupy their defensive players and hold it up a bit and play others into the game? It's a big chance for him, really, to show what he can do against one of the top sides, considering I really believe he has to aim to get into the Argentina national team. And if you want to get into it, you got to cause problems against teams like City. But if we look at it, I think Ollie Watkins is a player who's in form. Since the World Cup break ended, he's got 3 goals and an assist. He got a goal against Liverpool, goal against Southampton, and 1 against Leicester last week, plus the deflected goal of Harry Souttar that came about because of him, and he also got an assist in the 2-0 win away at Tottenham. So he's certainly a player who's in better form than most, and I think that whilst he has some frustrating inconsistencies about him, about his hold at play sometimes he can't take that easy chance. Sunday's a good opportunity to show why he too should also be looking to try and get into an international team, into England. And he's done well since Danny Ings left for West Ham. So, look, I'm going to be positive and say we can cause problems. I think City will most likely win because, of course. But, yeah, that was a Friday night well spent.